Hello, everyone, and welcome back. That was an amazing keynote fireside chat, and thank you all for joining us for this last session. Just one piece of housekeeping before I hand it off to the next speaker. From now until the end of the conference, we're on this webinar link as we go from the reflections from the steering committee off into the closing plenary, and then my final remarks to close off the conference. We don't have to move. You stay right here and you don't have to change links. So welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us all this time. The next session will be reflections from the Disability and Work in Canada Steering Committee. And I'm very pleased to invite Alex Farquhar to start the session off.
Thanks so much, Mahadio. Hello, everyone. What an intense few days. And I guess I'll get the ball rolling with some of my own impressions. The biggest impression, this is from Alet Mansky, from Bob Ray, from numerous others. Now is our moment. It's a moment to think big. It's a moment to create the biggest tent possible. And you just finished seeing a fireside chat from Perrin Beatty and Hassan Youssef. I think it's modeled that. The most significant business and labor leaders in the country are getting together and they understand our issue. We're fortunate to have visionary civil society leaders like this in Canada. And I was impressed that they saw the full range of disabilities, including mental health, and had a sense of how it would fit with the way the workplace is evolving with the impact of COVID. A message I took from Bob Ray, I found his opening remarks so powerful. Find ways to make inclusion the natural thing to do, not just the right or required thing to do. I think that's very simple. It's a few words, but it's very powerful. Another message from Bob Ray. Let's reach for a world where there's no them. It's all about all of us. And I think the combination of those is a beautiful framework that goes way beyond the sort of black letter of human rights law. Something else from so many of the presentations in the conference has been that we have an amazing community of knowledgeable, committed people. And this community has developed many, many well-framed proposals for improvements and solutions. We have no shortage of ideas. The challenge, as everybody watching this knows, is how do we bring those into reality? Some of us have had some discouraging years in trying to do that. Several sessions showed the importance of ending poverty for persons with disability and dealing with the structure of income support programs as a necessary foundation for making a breakthrough on employment. These are not separate issues, they're intimately linked. We saw a whole lot of examples of the vital importance of an intersectional approach and how that's not just sort of a technical term, it's a way to help you build community when you understand the special barriers that certain parts of the community of persons with disabilities are facing. We've seen some outstanding examples of inclusive workplace culture supported by policies, programs, and training. And above and beyond all that, the commitment of the workplace parties. I've had so many emails, texts, and chats from different people that are watching now who've expressed tremendous enthusiasm about the conference and great interest in participating in the follow-up. A lot of the follow-up and a lot of the sessions we've seen are about local, sectoral, provincial initiatives with multiple partners. I think we still have a lot to learn from each other, how to make those partnerships work best, both strategically and at the front line. And I'll close with this comment, which we made before, but it's, I think, more important than ever. The strategy that Disability and Work Canada has put together is not meant to replace other people's strategies. There are so many valuable ideas and strategies out there. Progress is going to be made on many fronts by many people in many situations. However, we believe that we have played a pretty important role in bringing people together over the last 3-4 years. And certainly I'm making, and I know our steering committee is making a commitment to follow up, to keep going, to keep bringing people together, and to maximize this big, big moment. Thank you.
Thanks, Alec. So, wow. Hi, everybody. I think you know me. I'm Maureen Hahn. I'm the president and CEO of the Canadian Council on Rehabilitation and Work, CCRW. What an amazing couple of weeks. It was to see the quality and of the speakers has been outstanding. And I can echo Alec and say that that's because we all came together and we've started to build something, and we started to build it, and we built it, and we built it, and we built it. And now is the time that we're attracting everybody to come and kind of look over and see what we're building, and to say, hey, what is it that you are doing? And again, it's not the steering committee, it's everybody. It's everybody that's been at this conference this year. It's everybody who's been at the conference since 2017. And it just makes me so proud. And for those of you who know me well, know that I would much rather be in the room with all of you. You know, seeing everybody in person, it's been extremely difficult only seeing your names in the participant lists, because yes, I get to stand in front of you now or sit in front of you now, but it's not me, and it's not just us behind the scenes. We're just conveners. And so with that, I feel that you know, we've been gathering for a while, and I was saying this yesterday, I feel like we've been knocking on the door. We've been doing our work, and we've been knocking on the door, and we get together and we do a little bit more, and we knock on the door, and we continue to knock on that door. And now I feel that the door's open, and the door's open, and we're being asked to take a seat. And I think that before we take that seat, I think it's so important that we remain focused, and we continue to do the work that we're doing, and we don't get sidetracked by other issues or by other priorities, because there's lots of them. But we need to continue to stay focused on the work that we're doing. The strategy that we've got going on, it's pretty good. It needs some work though. And I think that I really learned that at this conference this year, that the intersectional lens that we've applied is not fulsome enough, that we need to have autism as part of our strategy, and as a top part of our strategy, that we need to really look at the journey of newcomers, and we have to look at the journey of women, of people of color, of mental illness. We need to look at all of those intersections and see how we can put it into one document for that we're working on. As Alec had said, there's lots of documents going on, and there's lots of strategies going on, and this isn't to overtake any of them, but it's to bring everything together. And we need this organized in order for us to pick the seat at the table. And I think that it's amazing. We have a commitment from the UN ambassador for Canada on the Convention on the Rights for Persons with Disabilities. We saw that. We have a commitment from our minister, from Minister Qualtrough. We heard that. It's an incredible time. I encourage everybody to join working groups that are already established, and to establish more working groups, either through this the Disability and Work initiative, or through your own initiatives, and link back and make sure that we're linking back so that we are working together and we're moving together. So I thank you. I thank you for coming. I thank you for your attention and your time. I thank the people behind the scenes, Nav, Sabrina, Samira, and oh my gosh, Nav, Sabrina, Samira, and Kathy. Oh my gosh, Kathy. I thank you so much for your incredible work on this conference. This would not have happened without the four of you, hands down. And Josh, special shout out to you too. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Steve. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Maureen. And thanks for everyone who participated. I've learned a lot over the last 2 weeks. I've been involved for 40 years in these issues, and still I continue to learn, and thank you to all of you. And thanks for all the good works you've been doing for these years. But as an advocate, I got to say, I got to ask you for more. In my early years, I was a house builder. And what I learned was you need a strong foundation to have a house that's going to become a home. Without that strong foundation, you end up with the cracks in the walls and the roof starts leaking, and then the maintenance costs become greater and greater. And then you're kind of challenged around making that your real home and feeling comfortable in that home. So when I reflect on the conference, I go back to the opening session and the Indigenous greeting from Stephen Linton, who talked about that stability and security need to be there in order for a person to be ready to work. And that we need to look at the person as a whole. And these are challenges that we have yet to meet. Rarely do we see in our programs and systems, do we treat people as a whole person? We take little pieces of that and focus on that. But those are only pieces of us. If we don't look at that as a whole, we're missing and we don't have that strong foundation. Our strategy talks about these issues and gives us guidance kind of moving forward. You know, when we look at stability and security, we're talking about that people with disabilities, injured workers, our basic needs are met. That gives us that stability, that ability to take on challenges, to respond to the barriers that we see in front of us and move forward to be successful. And that includes income security. It includes disability supports that are more tailored to individual needs. Employment supports, a lot of which we've talked about over the last 2 weeks. It also deals with the issue of power and control. And when we talk about an inclusive society, we're talking about one that shares that power. And that's a long way to go. Alabansky talked about maybe giving up some of our egos. That's part of that power and control piece. And we're also seeing that as we move forward in the world of work, that workers are not really seen as valuable as they used to be. Sometimes we see them as disposable. The increase in precarious employment makes real challenges for us to kind of see those long-term opportunities. And when we think about a person as a whole, we need to have services that stick with people over the long term, that relationships are built up between providers and clients that see beyond that one goal of getting the person a job, as an example, but are there, as we see in some services, to provide support along the way and to be able to be, someone that you can call on when you need that extra piece of advice or information. And we're also seeing that there's increased pressures for efficiency in our system and in our world of work. That's leading to AI, and we heard about the shortcomings of AI in terms of it may not have the data in there on workers with disabilities, so that we inadvertently can be excluded. We see overworked caseworkers that don't have the time to spend with their clients. We saw in British Columbia, the workers' compensation system has a goal of reducing time on benefits rather than helping people move forward. As I wrap up, I think going back to the comments from Bob Ray on the first day, he said, let's affect everyone. And that we're part of an international movement around disability rights. That heartens us. And then yesterday in the opening with Alamansky, he really talked about us forming a national disability movement. And I'm all in favor. Let's get going and to take charge of the change we want to see. That sometimes we have to step beyond the bounds that normally surround us to be that change, to create the world we want to live in. Once again, thanks to everybody who's making that change happen. And I want to turn it over to Ron Saunders.
Thank you, Steve. So there's just a couple things I want to add to what my colleagues have said so far. I think the main impression I have from the conference is that I've been impressed by how many promising initiatives are going on across the country. There's still a long way to get to a truly inclusive society, but the momentum is there, and it is exciting to see that momentum build. The only other thing I'd really like to do is to thank people, and I know Maureen started that, but I'd like to offer a bunch of thank yous. To our 4 MCs, I think all of whom were wonderful, to our many speakers and panelists, to those who shared their lived experience in the vignettes, to our captioners, to the ASL interpreters, to many volunteers who have worked behind the scenes to support the conference. And I especially want to thank, and I know Maureen did this, but I want to underscore it. I want to thank the team, the administrative team who is really running the show behind the scenes. Samira Amadze, Nav Basra, Josh Clavier, Sabrina Imam, all did a ton of work. And then there's a person who I think has done 2 tons, and that's Kathy Podkapayeva. A special thanks to Kathy P. And finally, just to thank all of you for participating, for engaging. We had great Q&A sessions. Really appreciate the engagement that we've seen over the course of the conference. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Emil Tompa.
Thank you, Ron. So I'm last in the sequence, so I might repeat some of the thank yous that other people have mentioned as well. I'm Emil Tompa. I'm a member of the Disability and Work in Canada Steering Committee, and I'm also director of the Centre for Research on Work Disability Policy. And as others have thanked everybody who's been involved and participated in the activities of the conference over the 4 days of the conference over these last 2 weeks, it's what's made the difference. Just everybody being actively involved, whether you're attendees or MCs, panelists, or moderators, keynote speakers, presenters, people with lived experiences, some of the behind the scenes hosts and facilitators, all the accessibility supports, including the sign language and captioners and interpreters. That's what's made the difference. Everybody coming together, working together. And I too want to give a shout out to those people working behind the scenes tirelessly for the last few months, planning and organizing, inviting, pre-recording, reviewing, editing, amongst many other tasks in order to pull this virtual conference together. It's been a huge amount of work for the people noted, Kathy Payeva, Sabrina Iman, Nav Basra, Samira Almazi, and Josh Clavier. They've all been mentioned, and they really, really deserve a big thank you for making this all happen so seamlessly. It's clear that it takes many people with passion and conviction to make such an event happen, and I'm thankful for everybody who's participated in whatever way you have to bring us all together like this. There was so many inspiring and rich presentations across the 4 days of the conference that it's really extremely difficult for me to just give justification to everything that people have shared with us in a brief few seconds, but I'll try to touch on a few that really stood out to me. One of the things that really stood out for me was an idea that was inspired by several people who spoke at the conference, and the idea that we should strive to create a world that we all want to live in. That's really important. Perrin Beatty also noted the potential for a new world of work that will unfold following COVID-19, the silver lining that might come from these difficult times that we're in right now. The call to action by Al Atmansky for us to create a movement like no other. This is our time to create that movement. That we need to change how we go about making change. I really like that message. He also noted that it's in our power if we convene and unify our community to take charge and of the process of change. And my colleagues have noted that as well. We have to work together, regardless of what part of the system and what part of the community we're from. As Mahadio noted this morning, nothing without us. Just keep it at that. We have to be part of everything. It's a powerful force. Al mentioned, it's moral, social, political, cultural, and economic. Bob Ray also noted in his opening comments in his keynote the magnitude of the economic force. He also noted that it's the last frontier that we have to overcome. You know, as a society, we've had many advances with many social issues. This is the last frontiers, and it's ours to move forward. You know, the strategy that we've collectively developed, that was a starting point for many of us on this journey, is just that. It's a starting point. You know, governments and employers and various actors in the disability policy arena have embraced it, as was noted by Minister Coltro and others. And now we need to move forward to put it into action. And that takes everyone who has participated in this conference to be active players in the process. On a more immediate note, I just want to reiterate something that I mentioned on the first day, that the DWC Steering Committee is in the process of formalizing our governance and planning to expand its roster of members. We definitely want to be more representative of the diversity of the persons living and working in this community. We also need more expertise and knowledge and influence amongst our ranks to help continue moving forward. So stay tuned and we'll keep you posted about these developments as we move forward.